welcome to the Big Scuba podcast. Thanks for downloading. Time to get on board and let's go diving. Mind those ropes.
Hi, I'm Mark Greaney. I'm on the Big Scuba podcast with Gemma and Ian.
Hello and welcome to the Big Scuba podcast. This is episode 225 coming at you. My name is Ian and I am in the Auto Trail Expedition 68 XL, and I'm not here alone. I am here with...
Hello, this is Gemma and welcome to the Big Scuba podcast on location.
Yes, welcome. Straight from the top, let me tell you, these episodes come to you by the power of that 90, and they are...
Beyond technical, and their service is beyond technical as well.
And they also come to you by Auto Trail, who've kindly lent us this lovely motorhome and to do some, I should say camper van, actually.
Yes.
Get it right. Camper van to do some work with.
Yeah,
and
we're
things
going to
like that.
create some content. So it's a Fiat Ducato conversion.
It is, yeah.
So
it's pretty smart.
Very smart. It's a full berth.
And if you was at the Go Dive show, you saw it there. So
yes,
it's the one that we had.
Same vehicle.
Yeah. Coming up, we've got some news items as we normally do, and we've got a guest for you. So that's all really good. I'm going to mention straight away, on the serious note, thoughts go out to the friends and family of Doug Allen, a big diver. A lot of people know and worked with in the diving community. So sad news since our last recording that we've lost Doug.
Yeah.
Seen some great stuff on social media, people sharing when they've worked with Doug, and
some fellow
people
guests
who really know him, fellow guests. Andy Torbett, he shared of him, I think when he went down a glacier or something, didn't he?
Yeah, and Doug he is renowned for specialising in polar regions.
Done a lot of stuff with David Attenborough in the past, and and that picture or that video of him with the whales, absolutely amazing as well. So really sad news.
Yeah, he was 74 and trekking in Nepal when he unfortunately passed away, but doing what he loved. So it's for every cowboy wants to die on the trail. Exactly. Yeah.
So excellent. Okay. So we've got a guest for you today, and his name is
Mark Greaney. You may know him as an author, but he builds in scuba diving into his books.
He certainly do. So if you're a fan of the Jack Ryan, Tom Clancy books, he'd written as a ghostwriter for Tom Clancy for quite a while. And then when Tom Clancy died, he then took over that mantle and carried on writing some of the books. And
he writes about 2 to 2.5 books every year,
which is pretty amazing.
It's amazing.
And also, if you've seen the film The Grey Man, he was the man behind that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So actually, should we read
his latest book? Is called
extract.
The Hard Line.
The Hard Line. Yeah. So from the extract, the grey man discovers that family is just another word for target in the latest entry in this #1 New York Times best series. For a man who works in the shadows, a family is not just a luxury, it's weakness. When an unknown enemy uses treats against Jack Hightower's estranged daughter to blackmail the injured operative into taking on a dangerous mission, his friend Court Gentry, aka the Grey Man, volunteers to take Zach's place, but the court has problems of its own. He's already got an expert assassin on his trail. Oh no! And for no apparent reason. And now his guest, to protect Zach's family, may drag his own family into the maelstrom. Can you just believe that? There's one lesson that court has found.
Undeniable.
What was it?
Undeniable.
And that there's a reason superheroes have secret identities.
Well done.
Isn't Mr. Talbot one of them secret
agents?
No, superheroes.
Yes. Yeah, so I think they're quite fast-paced books. So if you're looking for entertaining read, then definitely, he's an author to look up.
Yeah. And if you want to subscribe to my audio channel, let me know. I'll read a book for you.
Make it up as I go along.
I'll probably get it wrong, but it'll be roughly right. So there we go. Read read to you there for your enjoyment.
We also
put my false teeth
mentioned
back in now.
that our Queen would have been 100 on Tuesday.
I know, it was
21st of April.
Pretty I was astounded by that actually when I read that.
Yeah, it always sticks in our mind, doesn't it?
And she died September, wasn't it? 22.
When we were on our way to the Farne Islands.
Yeah. And that is gone in a flash, hasn't it?
Yeah. And also to say to Christina and
you
Kevin...
do miss the Queen, don't you? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, definitely.
You miss the Queen.
You should be thinking what on earth is happening in the world at the moment.
Oh, let's not get political. We're just a scuba channel.
Yeah, so that's another day to think about.
Yeah. Something else to think about coming up in the later on this year is dive talks in Portugal. Early bird tickets are available on their website from the 23rd to 25th of October is when the show is, and there's often quite a few of UK divers go there. I think Lee Bishop's been previous guest speaker, so's Phil Short. If you're going to be in Portugal later on this year, you might want to try and marry up your dates so you can get to see some speakers.
They're really, considering it's November, they're really pushing it, already. I think we've been contacted as well.
I think there's more shows than that. I think there seems to be more shows going on at the moment. So getting it was a bit like Go Diving Show. They've got other things going on. One in Australia, haven't they?
Camping and caravan shows. They just keep popping up all over the place.
Yeah, there's another one of those coming up as well.
Yeah, I think there's one in the southeast. There was one happening up north as well. So there's lots going on.
Yeah, lots going on. Also, Deep, our friends over in Deep. Great news for them. So they're now taking applications for UK HSE closed bell diver training at their new saturation dive and training facility at Deep Campus. You all might know it as NDAC. It's not NDAC, get over it, move on. It's not NDAC anymore. But if you're looking to get into the whole saturation diving, and they'll take it so you're trained to 200 metres.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, but it's great that we've got that facility in the UK now.
The 3-week course equips experienced divers with the skills needed to transition into closed bell diving, combining classroom-based theory with hands-on practical training. The programme covers closed bell operations, life support systems, transfer under pressure, and emergency response procedures. There's more information all on the deep.com website. Go there if you are interested. So I wouldn't, don't quote me on the 200 metres, but there's something about I think it kind of gets you ready for that
experience
and take you up to 200 metres, because I think campus is about 80 metres.
Yes, and if you're thinking about a career change or getting into a career, look up Deep, because there's loads of inspiration.
I think if I'd been about 5 years younger in my early 20s, then I probably would have been interested.
Yeah, but it's an amazing career. It takes you all over the world, anything to do with saturation diving. So look the guys up at Deep. They've got lots of interesting stuff there. Need to mention Circular & Co, who we've teamed up with, who make reusable coffee cups and drinks bottles. So they're proving quite popular at the moment.
Pretty cool.
I did a post yesterday about the cups made out of trainers, fabric, bubblegum, paper cups. So you're doing your thing for the recycling.
And also,
of the world.
summer's coming. It's on the way, although quite hard to believe it with how cold this wind is today.
Yeah.
While we're on location.
We're by a local lake, and it was beautiful yesterday. Sun's shining today, but it is very chilly.
Have a look on water trails. If you're thinking about getting a new camper van or a motorhome, both are available at Auto Trail. Have a look, see what they do, and find out where your nearest dealership is.
Yes, yeah.
It's pretty cool. Oh, yeah, I like these.
Yeah, it's nice and bright inside, comfy. It's good to drive. We went up to Grimsby to pick it up.
We've got this for a while, so we'll be going to be filling it up with dive kit and putting it through its tests. Also, if you are a paddleboarder, you want to get a paddleboard, go to Waterhall.
McConks.
McConks even. I said that earlier.
You did. I thought,
McConks. Get a McConks.
So we were going to intend to paddle today, but I think it is a little bit too windy.
We have too many brands that want to work with us.
I know. Yeah. So, but yeah, look up McConks. They've got a range of paddle boards for serious paddle boarders and sort of the recreational, just toodle along kind of paddle boarders.
Yeah, and we've got a discount code. So.
Yes, yeah.
There we go.
So links are in the show notes.
Right, before I get it wrong any further, and I put my false teeth back in, let's get our guest on.
Yeah, let's have a chat to Mark Greaney.
Hi, I'm Mark Greaney. I'm on the Big Scuba podcast with Gemma and Ian.
Excellent. Welcome to the Big Scuba podcast.
Thanks for having
welcome.
me.
That's great. And we always like to ask our guests, we've got a question we'd like to ask them. And towards the end of the podcast, we've got a few other fixed questions we like to ask. And as it's a diving podcast, what does being underwater mean to you?
Oh, gosh. I was one of those people that was very reluctant to scuba dive. I was like drawn towards it, but terrified at the same time. And that lasted 30 seconds maybe. And ever since then, it's been one of my favorite things to do, my favorite pastime. I'm very much a recreational diver. I have about 80 dives, and I've gone years in between some dives. And then I've had, I've been on dive boats where I've done 20 in a week. But, everywhere I go, I like to see if there's an opportunity to dive. So I've dived like in Croatia and the Caribbean and Mexico and Hawaii. And it's just as I explained to non-divers, including my wife who doesn't dive, it's the most exciting thing and the most peaceful thing at the same time. And so I don't know anything else that's in any way like that. So that's what I think of diving. Yeah.
When was you last in the water?
Last summer in Hawaii, but I am going this weekend. I'm going to Grand Cayman. I've never been to the Caymans.
Oh, wow.
So I'm leaving on Friday, and I've got 2 dives set up for Sunday, and then I'll just take it from there. Probably dive all week.
Yeah. Off a boat?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what have they said, what you're likely to see?
No, other than I think it's the Western Wall or something, and then there's a wreck. But there's lots of dives there. I just picked kind of the first 2 on the on the website, and that's where I'm going to start. I kind of like to because there's a lot of dive shops there, and I kind of like to make sure that I like the dive shop, even though I almost always do.
Yeah.
Before I commit to more. But I was in St. Lucia a couple of years ago, and I did that. I went on 2 dives with one group, and then just went every single day. After that, because I just loved it. And they would sort of apologize if they thought they had to go back to the same site that I'd been to. And I'm like, I'd go to the same site twice a day for all week. And I live in Tennessee. It's so amazing for me to be here at all. And there's something different to see, even if you go back to the same site every time.
Yeah. Have you got anywhere local that's anywhere you can dive that's local to yourself?
So there are quarries, and there's a lake up in Kentucky that the local dive shops go to. I honestly haven't been to either of them. I learned how to dive in Puerto Vallarta in 2010.
Right.
And I travel a lot with my job as a writer, and I do a lot of location research for my books. And so I've been to 30 something countries, and not all of them. Obviously I didn't dive in a lot of them. I didn't dive in Estonia in December, for example. Although I'm sure if I had the technical training, I could have. But I do all my diving pretty much when I'm traveling. There's actually a really great dive shop here in Memphis.
Is it?
called the Dive Shop, and so I go there for equipment and advice, and I've been in there. They have a big pool, and I've done a refresher there, and but all of my real diving I've done just other places around the world.
Yeah. So what actually sparked you to actually get into the water? Was it because of your job that you decided to scuba dive?
Yes, it was research for a book. It was my third novel. It was called Ballistic, and it took place in Mexico. And I knew that there was going to be scuba diving in the book. And I've definitely written about a lot of things that I could never or would never do. But I thought, scuba diving it's like, what's stopping me? I'm sure I'll be like nervous about it because I did sort of have this fear of it. And so I went and got really good training, just open water course. And the first time I went in under the waves, I remember being really, really scared. I remember thinking like, oh, is this what they say when they say panic attack? I've never had a panic attack. And for maybe 15 seconds, I felt like I was going to. And then it just immediately became awesome and fascinating. And I've never once been scared doing anything scuba related anywhere in the world. So that it was for a book, but then now it is kind of I have these little credos. I've written 27 novels, and I'm like, I can't make them all about scuba diving. I would love to. It's certain things that I like to do for training for my novels, and I'm like, okay, you don't want to saturate the reader with your hero swimming through all of these. It's not Aquaman you're writing about. So I I'm going to Grand Caymans obviously for recreation, but also for research for a novel. So the novel I'm writing now does have some diving in it.
Yeah. We should highlight the fact that you are well known for, and I'll mention this for our listener, that you're well known for your books, and well, you got writing first for Tom Clancy.
Mm-hmm.
And then who Tom Clancy, for anyone who don't know, is known for Hunt the Red October, Patriot Games, Clear and Present Danger, amongst lots of other Hollywood blockbuster films. And then you was it The Gray Man? You did The Gray Man, and that was then turned into a Hollywood film with Ryan Reynolds,
Ryan Gosling,
Ryan Gosling, sorry, yeah. And brilliant, another good film. And as you said, you got many other books, all sort of all around the military and special forces and all that type of thing. So, because I did some of the research I'd looked into with you, and it's picked out 1 Minute Out as a particular book of yours, where there's quite a lot of underwater. Edits and books in the books.
Yeah, that one. I was in Croatia doing research, and I got to dive in Croatia, which is a different experience than most of my diving's in the Caribbean or Mexico, and most of my diving in Mexico is in the Caribbean side of the Mexico. Wow. Although I have been on the West Coast, and Hawaii, but pretty much everything else has been in the Caribbean. That's the closest to where I am in Tennessee. But also, I mean, gosh, diving in the Bahamas or St. Lucia or the BVI is just so awesome. It's just so fantastic.
Yeah. So have you always been a wetsuit diver? Have you done your dry suit speciality?
No, I haven't done dry suit. I was going to learn because I did a book, and part of it took place in Finland, and I was going to get to go, and then wasn't able to go. So I was going to do dry suit up there. I was talking to a dive shop up there in Finland, and then the whole that whole part of that trip couldn't happen just because of COVID. So I haven't done dry suit yet.
Yeah. You need to come to the UK and do some.
I would love to. And, I have friends I've diving in the Bahamas, and some people that I just met on the liveaboard boat we were on. We're all pretty much dry suit divers because they were like Lake Michigan divers, and which I was like, it's kind of amazing to me. But they were enjoying being in the Caribbean and wearing a 3mm or just going without.
Yeah, it's a whole different way of diving.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your thing when you're underwater? Is it wildlife or wrecks or walls?
You know, it's all of it, and I've explained this to my non-diving friends. I'm like, the sort of the embarrassing thing for me is like one of my favorite thrills about scuba diving is just that feeling of flying and weightlessness, and that just sort of the experience itself. You know, it's like I'm like I'd love to say that I'm this technical diver and I'm, you know, exploring and all that. And, you know, all that's true. It's amazing, you know, to see what you can see and to go into caves and to go into wrecks, and I like that, but um just the experience, and it's so I was diving in the BVI's once at the Indians, which is kind of a well-known, very shallow site, but very, very beautiful. And I remember this experience. I was early in my, you know, in the dives I've done, and I remember I was coming over a rise, and I was going to see what was on the other side of the rise, and I remember being so like anticipating and so excited for like, oh, wonder what's over here, and I got that feeling in my head like, when in my normal day-to-day life am I like excited for what's around the corner to see what's around the corner, and I'm like, that's what's so cool about diving is just this like you know, being in a different world. But I definitely would love to learn more about fish. I am terrible about wildlife. Every time I come up from a dive, I have a really terrible time you know, trying to describe what I saw. Even if everybody else saw it, I'm not even able to explain to them what it was that I saw. So that's definitely something I need to work on. I'm also going to Hawaii this summer, and we'll be doing a lot of diving. I've gotten two of my kids certified, and
Nice.
the third has done Discovery twice, but she hasn't gone through the certification yet. And then in November, myself and a big group of writers, thriller writers, are going on a liveaboard in the Bahamas.
Wow.
I don't know how we all got this together. Somebody said it'd be great if a bunch of us who are divers went on a trip together, and I was thinking like the chances of somebody getting 12 people's schedules together is like zero, and then within a few days we have a plan. So we're going to do that in November. So I have a lot of opportunities to dive this year. I need to get my own equipment, which I don't have, which is you know, my next step. I bought some equipment right at the beginning of COVID, and I bought a BCD and a wetsuit, and never used it. And you know, it's 6 years old now. I still haven't used it. I've dived several times since then, but they were just on trips where I didn't feel like hauling the stuff with me. So I need to kick it up a notch.
I've got an idea for you. So you're going to have 12 writers all on the liveaboard for a week.
Yeah.
Call yourselves all special forces, like Mr. So a bit like Reservoir Dogs, where you got Mr. Orange, Mr. Green, Black.
Yeah.
Each one's got a different name. Each one's got to write a chapter by the end of the week. There's a book for you all.
There you go. It's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. Although I feel like there'd be 12 different.
But then you put them all together.
Yeah, but people would have 12 different heroes, each thinking they're
That's
the
not a
best.
bad thing, is it?
That's not a bad thing. Yeah, people always ask, you know, like, would you collaborate with other successful writers? And I'm always going like, yeah, I'm looking at the logistics of that and the egos. I don't feel like I have a big ego, but at the same time, it's like, how come my hero fell out the window and your hero, you know, saved the day? I think there'd be a little bit of that.
Yeah, there's always winners and losers in these things.
Yeah. So in your writing, have any of your personal scuba experiences influenced what you've written in your book?
Yes. I mean, everything that happens in the writing is, you know, amplified by 10,000 from my real experiences. But I have written scenes and thinking about what would be the most horrifying thing that could happen to this character at this moment, you know. So when you're under the water, the things that you sort of train to avoid, you know, worst case scenarios, let's say, I think about them when I'm writing, and I have written some scenes. And I think in that book, 1 Minute Out, there was quite a bit of diving. I did another book called Burner, and there was quite a bit of scuba diving in that one, and in Ballistic. And then so other than just, you know, basic how it works, scuba diving. And then, some of the technology, everything else is just sort of a heightened experience. So, I train with firearms and weaponry and medical, all these things for my books. But then when I write the book, anybody who's there with me when I was training with a SWAT team is going to be like, where'd he get that? Because it didn't come exactly from what I was doing. It's just sort of like the creativity takes over. And that's the very cool thing about scuba diving, because there's a lot of really neat, amazing things. A lot of people don't get the opportunity to do it, but it's nice to read about. And I've always watched, enjoyed watching movies and seeing that, growing up. And I guess that's why I got into it. I was in my 40s when I learned to dive, and my stepson was 13 when he got certified.
Oh, wow, that's good.
So he'll be way beyond me very soon.
A lot of books get read on liveaboards, and do you ever find that people who read your books, especially if they're divers, then say, hey, that wouldn't happen, or that's not realistic? Because like I get what you said about having a little bit of artistic creative license, especially in movies, but unfortunately when you look at some of the Hollywood films, like the one film particularly that comes to mind is 47 meters down. And you watch that and it's like so far off the whole thing. Like they can be nearly 50 meters down on one tank for an hour, attacked by sharks, and they still come up at a rate of knots and they survive. And it's like, there's no way that happened, but you get it. It's Hollywood. But do you ever get divers say come up to you and say, well, or people in the special forces and say, well, actually, that's miles off?
Yes, really less in diving than other things, probably because I haven't taken as fanciful chances in diving. Because I am, I guess an intermediate at best. So definitely anything with firearms, even it doesn't matter how much expertise you have. If you get a muzzle velocity wrong by like 0.1%, you're going to get yelled at by people. And diving, it hasn't really been that much, but I know that I've never dived with rebreathers, and I have written about them. Obviously, because that's some of the writing I do, and I've definitely gotten things wrong about
that. A try dive with one.
Yeah. And so I actually, they're at the dive shop here in Memphis. They have a mannequin with I guess a dragger or some kind of rebreather on it.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, how long has this been here? I could have saved myself a lot of grief just by looking at it. But I definitely need to dive with rebreathers. That's something. I think after this year, I will probably almost double the number of dives I have, and that's the plan anyway. Depending on how much I get to dive in Hawaii, because I'll be with my family, and 3 of us dive, and so I mean I'll probably get 8 or 10 dives that week. But I imagine that next week in the Caymans, I'll probably get more than that, and I think we have an opportunity. There's Panama City, Florida is actually kind of the closest place to dive to where I live. And it's not the best water, or my experience was, it's not the best conditions, although I follow them on Facebook, and it seems like the conditions are amazing every time I'm not there. But
it's always the way.
And it's like, I was like, wow, I've never actually seen that ship that I dove through. But that's what it looks like. But I'm hoping to get another dive trip into Florida, down to Florida this summer to get even more. So
we've both done just a try dive on a rebreather, and it really is a fantastic experience to show you the difference between scuba and rebreather. Highly recommend it, even if it is just a try dive. It's just
the silence is amazing.
Yeah, I bet that's a whole different experience. And then, I didn't understand, I think what I got wrong in the book was, the equipment is more on your chest than on your back or something like that.
Depends.
Yeah.
Some are chest mounted, some are on the back.
Okay. Well, I got yelled at. I got yelled at because.
And side mount.
Yeah. And side mount, really.
Yeah. And that's another thing. We've done a try dive, side mount diving as well. So yeah, it's always good to try the different configurations of how people dive. So yeah.
But going back to what you said earlier, it's often the case that, you come back from a dive and somebody go, "Hey, did you see that seal? Did you see that great big fish?" You're like, "No." I went, "Right." If all you had to do is turn your head that way, you would have seen it.
Yeah, I was on a dive in the Bahamas, and it was off the boat, and the boat, I think 27 people can be on the boat. There were probably 22 of us, and everyone saw a hammerhead except for me. And
no way.
I think I don't remember anybody else that did not see the hammerhead. And they got pictures of it and everything. And I was like, yep, I was there. Never saw it. I don't know what I was doing. Probably messing with my equipment.
I feel your pain. I know exactly how that feels.
Yeah, looking at your computer or...
exactly.
Yeah, so no, that sounds good. So yeah, really good to get all these diving experiences in. And if you're going to up your number of dives as well, it's all experience.
Yeah. I've never had a bad dive because I mean, even when the conditions aren't good, you feel like you're learning from that. And down in Florida where I've dived a lot in Panama City, there's one wreck that I've been through, I don't know, 12 times or something, and every time it's a new experience or a new something new. I've had little bitty things go wrong, nothing dramatic, but there's just, it gives you that opportunity to show yourself that you can sort of relax, figure out your issues and make everything right. And that just gives you more confidence, and it lets you go on to the next step. It's like the other training I do, training with firearms or training, with emergency medical things of that nature. It's so much of it is fundamentals. It's not, there's nothing really super complicated. It's just executing the fundamentals, by second nature, if that makes sense. And I like that about diving. It's like you can dive. My stepdaughter, with 5 dives, has her open water certificate, and she's can go diving, but she can. There's a million miles away from the ability to do all the things she needs to do, but it's just mastering those fundamentals and building on them.
This episode is brought to you by No.1, the cutting-edge pioneers in the world of diving equipment. Meet the founders, John Routley and Brent Hudson, who have logged thousands of mixed gas dives over the past 3 decades. About 20 years ago, these experienced technical divers combined their passion for diving and engineering skills to create No.1. Whether you're new to diving and ready to take it up a notch, have a fair amount of experience, or are considering a transition into technical diving, we highly recommend No.1. They're ready to advise on the best equipment and setup for your personal and commercial needs. No.1 also has extensive hands-on experience with shearwater and ratio dive computers, being the longest-serving UK service centre for these brands. They're ready to offer technical support, servicing, repairs and upgrades for all shearwater and ratio computers, past and present. In addition to shearwater and ratio, No.1 stocks and supports many other brands, such as DiveSoft, JJCCR, Hollis, Revo and Kiss rebreathers. The diving community is always enthusiastic about No.1, and it's easy to see why. Here are just a few reasons. Full head servicing for rebreathers from various manufacturers, bespoke cable assemblies, advice on specific fitting requirements, suggestions and guidance for home builds, computer laser cutting and engraving, CNC milling and turning, pressure testing to simulate 400-metre dives. We're thrilled to partner with No.1, a company that has ignited so much passion for diving and has been incredibly supportive and innovative in producing and selling dive equipment. Visit No.1 to see why they're a renowned name in diving. Stay updated on their insights and offers by following them on social media. Just search for No.1 on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram and hit that follow button.
And keeping it fun, that's with my daughter, she's 15. She learned a couple of years ago, and And I recently had a chat with her about it, about, did she want to take it a bit further onto the advanced? And she learnt with Paddy, the local Paddy school here. And she said no, she's happy she is for the minute. And I think that's fine. And I think especially at their age as well, because at the end of the day, 18 meters is 18 meters. Was that in old terms, was that 50 foot, something like that? 40 foot. And that's plenty to get into trouble with, and it's all about how comfortable you are and making it fun. And I think, at their age, the more fun we can make it, the chances are the more they're going to enjoy it and carry on in the sport with a bit of luck, And,
I totally agree. I did notice it was in Oahu when my kids got certified, and I was just down there with them as they were getting, on their dives, and I was just sort of like basically watching, taking pictures. And then you just like you remember that like your stepson is 12, or I guess he was maybe just turned 13, and he's still a 13-year-old boy, even though he's underwater. And like at one point, like he got distracted by something and started like going off on his own, and I'm grabbing his fin and going like, pay attention to your instructor. And I was like, when we got back up, I was like, yeah, somehow I got it in my head that when you're underwater, you weren't going to be a little boy anymore, but you're still a little boy. So we still have to watch you carefully.
Yeah, and we get quite a few kids come through with training through the year, and they've got absolutely no fear at all.
Right.
And you're constantly trying to keep an eye on where they are. And I can think of sometimes, some dives we've been on, you've got one going one way, one going another, and you're like, hang on a minute. Then you got, and they see a fish and they're like gone, quick as anything, so it's kind of reining in the enthusiasm, but not stifling a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, there's still risk here,
And it's lovely to see, the youngsters. Ian's daughter, when we've been diving, she'll see something and off she goes, and it's just like no fear.
I'm on a leash.
Right, exactly. It's like herding cats, as they say.
Whereas, I think it's great learning at that young age, whereas I didn't learn till 50 something. Yeah. So, it's just like if you could have that lack of fear in some cases, but then, you have got to rein that exploration in and fearlessness in, to get that balance, I think.
Yeah. But it was fun when I got married. I got married 6 years ago, and so I suddenly was 52 years old with 3 stepkids, and I had this love of scuba. I don't get to do it nearly enough because I write 2 books a year, and I live in the middle of the U.S. and if I get 3 trips a year to somewhere where there's some water, it's a good year for me. But it was something I immediately wanted to share with the kids because they ski and they snowboard, they do all these other things, but none of them had ever dived. So we, all did the discovery dive. They loved it, and then I got 2 of them certified. The third one just didn't really have the time on that trip, and since then she's sort of only wanted to commit the time to do she likes to dive, but she doesn't want to commit the day and a half of her life it would take to, whatever it takes, a few days to get certified.
Would I be right in saying then that when you go diving, you basically have to fly somewhere first?
Yes.
Because like for us, you forget how big America is.
Yeah.
But in our, for us, we just get in the car and we drive a couple of hours, and but for obviously for you in America, so big,
where I live, it's about 8.5 hours to Panama City, which is really sort of the closest dive shop that I've ever dived from. Yeah. And so, I mean, I could drive it, and I have driven there before, but it was sort of before I had the equipment. It's just more convenient to fly. But then every other place has been, has been flying. And I hear the diving in Key West, Florida is like amazing. But I've never done it. And really almost everywhere I've dived has either been in Hawaii or outside of the US.
Yeah. So for us, that'd be like us. We're
Going
in
to
Norwich.
Scotland.
Yeah, it'd be like us driving to Inverness, maybe a bit further at Aberdeen, somewhere like that. So quite a hike, for driving. So yeah, which then comes into your how much gear you take and things like that.
That's the reason I haven't bought my own gear. Although I'm 6'3" and 230 something pounds, sometimes I get the one, 19-year-old suit or whatever it is that the dive shop has for the big guys. And sometimes I realize, I'm like, wow, this suit feels a little old, but yeah, so it's definitely something I want to do. I'm going to have my own gear before this dive trip on the Aqua Cat in the Bahamas in November. That made it my mission, and I know where to buy it. I really like the people at the dive shop here in Memphis, so that's not the problem. It's just sort of the problem of going like, okay, I'm gonna put this money in when I know I'm about to go diving, multiple times.
What have you got your eye on?
Equipment wise, I'm just I've had a walkthrough of everything, but it's been a few months, so I really don't know.
Okay.
What I bought initially was Cressy equipment.
Oh right, yeah, Cressy,
and I had that for a while, but it was sort of like designed for traveling or for taking with, and it was sort of explained to me by some scuba professionals that I didn't really get the best thing for me, and so it's 6 years old now. Has never been used. I'm probably not going to use it. I'm gonna get some new stuff. So as far as brands and stuff, I'm gonna let them direct me because I trust them up at this shop.
Yeah.
And it's not always about brand, it's about what is adequate for, your ability and what kind of diving you want to do and travel. There's all these lightweight options that you can get. Amazing gear. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've only used just the simple BCDs. I haven't used any like back inflated jackets or anything like that. So I've never even tried that. I understand it's better, but
I wouldn't know about better, but it's different. And you just feel a lot more loose, and some people like that. I quite like it, and you can get hybrids as well. Cressy, I think, do a hybrid, which is between a wing and a BCD. Because a lot of people with the BCD and learning BCDs, they like that hug feeling, having someone around them, and they give them that comfort.
And it's also storage, isn't it? Because sometimes when you move to a wing, you haven't got the internal storage or the internal
you can
weight.
add them bits on, and a lot of people don't like wings because they believe that when you're on the surface, you've got that weight pushing you forward.
Right.
If you actually reduce some of the pressure, don't, so there's ways around that.
Yeah.
So it's something to try for you. You might,
it's
really
definitely
like
something I need to try, I guess, before.
Perhaps in the pool.
Fortunately for me, there's a great pool at this facility here in Memphis, so you don't have to drive up to another state and
that's good.
Get in a rock quarry. But there's a big deep pool, so you get to use all the equipment. So that's really a great benefit.
And practice skills as well if you've got a pool, which is always a good thing. Before, if you've had a big break of
especially with your kids.
Non-diving. Yeah. So what kind of level have you done your advanced and rescue?
Yeah, just advanced. I'm not done rescue. Yeah. So that's something I definitely would like to learn. I just, it just feels like every time that I'm diving, I just go to the closest recreational shop, or the closest shop, and then just do a couple of dives and then maybe a couple more dives. And even on this trip to the Caymans, I don't think, I'm there long enough to where I could, but I'm there with my wife. We really haven't had a vacation in a long time, just because I did 2 books last year and I'm right in the middle of a book right now. So I don't know that I want to commit the time to doing that, but I would love to. I would love to learn rescue. I know I can do it on the Aqua Cat, which is the dive boat that I'll be on in November. So that's something to think about. And they do night dives every night, which I love. And I've actually been on that dive boat twice, and really love that experience, being down in the Bahamas and just going to a different dive site. 4 or 5 5 dives a day, I think.
Yeah, some people don't like night dives, and it's good that you do. And I think you see it's a whole different experience to do a night dive, isn't it?
It's a very different experience. I would say I am the weakest in all my diving. I'm weakest with a compass. It's that you go 6 months or a year without diving, and it's all feels like you're learning everything again.
Yeah.
Everything else comes to me really quickly. Even my buoyancy, it's like your first dive after you haven't dived in a while, you feel pretty like disoriented.
Yeah.
But very, very quickly the buoyancy is not a problem for me. But I always feel like just me with a compass is this thing where I'm doing, spend all my time doing math and getting it wrong, and staring at my compass and trying to figure things out. And so that's the one thing about the night dive you really should be good at it, I think. And a lot of times with these recreational groups that I'm with, there's 14 other people on the same dive. So it's not like I'm really doing any, orienteering, but
Yeah.
I would like to be better. I take it seriously, and I don't want to just be down there goofing off and following everybody else. But so I feel like I really enjoy night diving, but I feel like I could be a lot better at it.
Yeah. I think that's a fair comment, and I think that goes for all of us, and diving is very much like that. It's all about, and we say it to some of the students as now you got your license, it's all about diving. Just get in and keep safe, and just keep working on it, because it's like buoyancy, something that we all work on,
Mhm.
And you can always get better with your buoyancy.
For sure. And then when you haven't dived in a while, and I went to Stewart's Cove, which is a dive shop in the Bahamas, and I hadn't dived in a long time, and there was a lot of current at the surface, and I got in the water, and I was just completely out. This is maybe 3 years ago or something, and I was just completely out of my depth immediately. And I've just almost like, what am I doing? Like, I used to know how to do this. I was like almost like just very disoriented. My buoyancy was terrible, and I did my second dive was better than my first, and then I did two more the next day, and I felt pretty comfortable. And then I went and did a week on a boat there in the Bahamas, and felt perfect the whole time. And I'm like, I was so glad I came a couple days earlier and got a couple of dives under my belt, because I knew it had been a long time. And it made all the difference, because that first couple of dives, there's a town in Mexico called Akumal. It's north of Tulum, which is, I've dived there before. And Akumal is a very small little town, but it has a very nice dive shop. It's known for its turtles. It's not like a beautiful reefs or anything like that. So it's rocks and turtles, but it's nice. It's a really nice dive shop. And and I've gone there after having not dived for a long time. And the first couple of dives are very wonky. They use the little wooden boats there too, which when you have currents, getting in and out of those boats is the most difficult part of the entire diving process. It's like, well, really not getting out of the boat's not a problem at all, but getting back in the boat is a problem. But so every time I dive, and it's been a while, it's amazing to me how it feels like you're relearning how to do something that you thought you knew. But then within a couple of days, you just feel so comfortable, and you feel like you belong there.
Yeah, and that's the good thing. You've got to kind of stick at it rather than kind of think, no, that's not for me, or give up. And I think that you've just got to get back into the groove, I think, haven't you?
Yeah. You can't just let it get in your head that.
I think there's a couple of important factors there. Is one, a lot of people have a rule, like 3 things, for example. If anything during that lead up to that dive, if things have gone wrong, that's a strike. And for anything, or some breaks, strike 2. And if they get 3 strikes, they call the dive.
They bail.
And that's absolutely fine to do that for any reason. And also, if you haven't dived for a while, and maybe you've had a break, like you're telling us about, it's also because I've been on a dive boat with very experienced people, and sometimes you do feel a bit intimidated to ask for a bit of support or a bit of help, because you've got all these really experienced divers who are doing really big things and stuff. But I tell you, it's total natural feeling.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say to the captain of the boat or whatever and say, hey, I am dive for a while, and can I have a check dive, or if that's not possible, have a guide come in with me, and just because I haven't dived for a while, and I'll be fine for the next one, but it's just the first one. Just what, get that out of the way.
Yeah, I always follow that. If it's been over a year, which has happened to me probably 3 times, I always get the refresher, pay for the refresher
It's worth it.
course, which ends up being, it's actually a tremendous amount of fun, because you really sort of get to have one-on-one with the dive instructor. You watch a little video, and then you have one-on-one with the dive instructor, and they see really quickly, it's like, okay, he knows what he's doing. He's just doing the refresher because he knows that's sort of the rule that you should do, and he's abiding by that. So I feel, I don't feel like I don't know, embarrassed or whatever to get the refresher, even though I'm like
no, but for people who are listening, and some of them, we've had people come to us who haven't dived in years, and they were thinking about going to like Gran Canaria, the Great Barrier Reef diving. And thankfully they come to us because like they hadn't realized how much their health had deteriorated, and couldn't actually do the swimming. They couldn't swim 100 meters. And it's things like that. It's just like all of a sudden doing those refreshers, all of a sudden that's a bit of a wake-up call.
And enlightening.
Jumping in the sea is not maybe the right thing right now.
It kind of exposes, maybe the weaknesses that they didn't have previously. So we always say on the podcast, being fit to dive is so, so important to give you the best experience that you can have.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So it sounds good. Yeah. So the current book that you're writing, is there any diving within this book?
Yes. The one that I'm writing is it does have diving in the Caymans, and so I'll get to experience that, and then I'll come home and hype it up. Hopefully nothing that would go in a thriller is going to happen to me in the next week when I'm diving in the Caymans.
So how does writing work? Because like, do you sort of like allot yourself? I've never written a book, and so I've got no idea. So do you have to like allot yourself a specific period of time and then say, right, that's that? Or does inspiration come to you maybe like when you're underwater and you think, I've got an idea?
It's such a combination of everything. I mean, there is a specific amount of time because the book is due. Nobody cares about your first book, but once you're a writer and you're writing a series and you've hit #1 on the New York Times list, then they want that book on this certain date, yada yada. So you have to come up with your ideas. But my ideas and my inspirations come at all times and through the most random thoughts. But I've had ideas when I've been diving, or when I've been on a liveaboard, and little experiences that'll happen. I got some great ideas when I was in Croatia. I didn't go to dive. They actually have mines from the war that you can sort of dive on and see. The conditions weren't good and we didn't go that day, and it was a little deep for me anyway. But just learning that just gave me fodder for something to put into the story and to do research on. But usually I write 1.5 to 2 books a year. My books are long. Longer than other people's books, so they're 500 to 700 page long books, and I'm sort of always writing. I finish one and immediately start the next one because I have a contract for it and it's due at a certain time. But like I said, I try not to put diving in everyone, and I try not to put some of the other things that I've learned. I've gotten to fly in the back of a fighter jet, of a F-18 fighter jet, and go on naval destroyers and really do some cool stuff. Go to military bases.
I need to learn to write a book.
No, that's the fun part of it. But I mean, I've had 27 published novels now, so you're always trying to do something you haven't done before. So if I'm going to write,
hard to not repeat yourself?
It is the hardest thing. Like my joke is, I can't think up something cool and write it. I have to think up 28 things cool and then write the 28th thing, because there's only so many ways you can do it. So it does make you can do it one or two ways. You can just sort of go on autopilot and just keep doing what you've been doing, or you can try and amass new information and new experiences. And that's what I like to do. So that's why I like to go to different countries. I've never been to the Caymans before, but a couple years ago I was in West Africa, and had never been there before. Absolutely loved it. There was not scuba diving in Ghana for whatever reason. I was not able to find any place that I could go scuba diving. But I've dived at other places, and I had a trip planned to Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand. I was very excited because diving was going to be a big focus of it, but I had to have some ankle surgery, so the whole thing got scrubbed. And then the sad thing for me as a writer is the book still had to be placed there because the cover was already out. It was already available for pre-sale. And when people buy a book, it'll say a little something about what the book's about. Yeah. So I had to write about those locations, and I was very sad because I'm like, now I can't go there for work, for 10 years or so, because I can't make next book also take place in those locations. Yeah. So it's been long. It's probably been long enough. That was about 10 years ago. So pretty soon I'll find my way back over there to Asia, which
Couldn't you have like an agent where they go back to that to finish off the mission or something?
Finish off them. Well, yeah, I guess if I'd written that book that way to where it didn't all get finished, but I think people would yell at me for not settling that score the next year. So, yeah, so there's so many things that are important when you're writing to really learn about the things. I write books that involve Navy SEALs. I'm not a former Navy SEAL. I've got lots of friends are, and we can talk about diving all day long, but I have former Navy SEAL friends that hate to dive. I guess they just did too much of it, or their experience wasn't what they loved, and it's like I will go dive recreationally, and it'll be the best thing I do all year, and the most fun that I'll have all year. And I guess they got it out of their system when they were in the military.
Yeah, and they don't dive. Yeah, and we've had that with previous guests. We've spoken to like naval clearance guys, and they don't recreational dive at all.
Not at all.
Yeah, that's the job, I guess.
Yeah. Are there any? So diving is considered an extreme sport. Are there any other sports that you've got on your list that you want to try that you can then bring into your books?
I've had the opportunity to skydive, and I basically have just chickened out, but I think I'm ready to do that now.
What's the point of it?
If you had told me that I was going to fly in an F-18 and go Mach 1 and do low 7.5 G turns, if you told me that a few years ago, I would have thought you were crazy. And I did that and enjoyed it, survived it, and enjoyed it. I said there was about 15 minutes when I really didn't want to be in that plane. But
was you sick?
I did not get sick. I came home. I came home with the 3 bags that they put in my flight suit beforehand.
What, and you weren't sick once?
I was not sick once. I was as happy as I was. The young man that told me he would be the one that had to clean the cockpit out if I was sick. He was the last guy I saw before the canopy closed. Yeah. He's like, just so you know, I'm the guy that has to do that. And I told him, I was like, I'll help you. He's like, no, you're not allowed to help me. I have to do it. But no, I came home. Good. So I would do. I mean, I think I'd be very scared to skydive, but I think at this point I would do it. I was just in the Tyrolean Alps in Austria doing research for my next book. And I got to go there in winter. I'm not a skier, so I was mostly just hiking, taking pictures, and getting ideas for the book. But there was parasailing. You could do like tandem parasailing, but you had to be under 105 kilos, and I'm 107 kilos. And I was like, is that close enough? And they looked at me like I was crazy, and they're like, no. They weren't going to break the rules for 4 pounds. I was like, that's a difference of under 5 pounds. And
I can relate to this story.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. If
I went up on our honeymoon when I was married, and me and my wife, we went up. We'd been watching these people in Crete go nicely up in the air and come wafting down like leaves. And I've never been particularly lightweight, and I won't say anything about her because that'd be rude. As well, and but we both went up, and all needless to say that when they took the power off, we went down like a rocket, and we plummeted. That's like I remember looking down, going, yeah, this is going to hurt," and splash. And
well, but they must have known. I mean, it's their
we
job.
checked with them. We went, and they went, "Yeah, it's all right, it's all right." And they took the money, and up we
That's
went.
what I was
we were
going to
having
say.
a great time.
Take the money.
And yeah, as soon as they cut the power on the boat, that was it. We just went,
oh my gosh,
down. So
yeah. I guess they didn't want my money in Austria. I guess it wasn't worth it to them. I was like, really? It's that serious? But I mean,
yeah. Well, I'd recommend skydiving. I've done a tandem, and it's awesome. You don't feel like you're high up. You don't feel like you're falling. It's just like.
What do you mean you don't feel like you're high up? You're out up in a plane.
Well, yeah, but it's just the most amazing experience. You just have a smile on your face.
I'd like to do it.
Yeah. No,
I jump out of a perfectly good plane. It's going to land. It'll be fine.
Yeah, or throw yourself down a mountain on a pair of
You don't get on a bus and jump out halfway, do you?
Yeah.
I've got a question for you. So, is there any books out there and you haven't written, but you think, you know what, I would have loved to have written that book?
Oh, books that have been published that I wish I wrote.
That you think is there one particular you think, do you know what, I wish I'd been that one who wrote that? Is there anything that really stands out? Like the original James Bond,
I mean,
book or something like that.
Honestly, the original Sherlock Holmes,
just
the series, I've read it and I've reread it and I've reread it. It probably has a lot to do. I'm not even a mystery writer, but it was just something I really fell in love with when I was younger. And I will say, I love the James Bond books. Some are better than others.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how taste change and style changes. There's if you read that book, Goldfinger, I swear to you, 20% of that book is him playing golf. It's not this crazy wild spy novel, which we think of it is. But because that's what Ian Fleming was really into at the time. Stephen King is one of the best writers ever. He wrote a book called 11/22/63 about a guy who goes back in time to stop the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah.
And about 25% of that book is swing dancing, because Stephen King was very interested in swing dancing.
Really?
At the time. So it's just funny how like your memories of books change. But probably something like Sherlock Holmes, and at the time Sherlock Holmes came out, he had the whole market. And that's all anybody wanted to read was because that came out in the Strand magazine first. They weren't released as books. And so, I look at that as sort of like a gold standard. I mean, I've read Shakespeare and all that, but there's something about Arthur Conan Doyle's stuff that really appealed to me.
So you find time to write and read?
Yeah, well, less time to read than I would like to. When you're a writer, you have to read a lot for blurbs, where somebody else gives you their book and you read it, and so you can say on the cover, what you thought of it. So there's a lot of that. And then I read a lot of nonfiction. That's another part of the research I do for my books. And then so there is limited time left for reading. My wife and I like to watch movies all the time. So, we watch a lot of movies, but I try to read as much as I can. And every now and then I get to like go back and read one of the books that, the entire decade of my 20s, I don't remember doing anything else other than just having my nose in books all the time. And that's when I really fell in love with, novels and thriller writing. And it's when I decided that's when I dreamt of becoming a writer. I was 22 when I started writing my first book, and I didn't get published till I was 42, which I joke is why I write so much now. I've written 27 books in 17 years because I'm trying to make up for some lost time.
Not easy though, is it? That's a difficult skill and trade.
Yeah, it's tough. The summers are always the worst for me because my book's due in the summer. And so that's when it's day and night, and it's a lot of pulling my hair out. And, this time of year I'm publicizing a book. So it feels a little like the victory lap for the book you did last year, and everybody's like, celebrating this with you, but you're the one in the back of your heads going, well, next year's book's not getting written, and it's like, is next year's book really going to happen? But somehow by August I have a book, and by October it's edited and it looks like a book that I'd be proud for others to see. Wow. And that's the routine.
Yeah, certainly amazing. So, yeah, you're diving in shortly then. So that's and you might get some more inspiration from your dive trip.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I got lots of opportunities to dive this year, which I'm excited about.
Yeah. Have you got any locations around the world that you would like to dive that are on your bucket list?
Yes. Anywhere, any dive sites that have anything to do with the Second World War. So, over there in the Philippines and Okinawa, anything like that just seems to me like that would just be the holy grail for me. I'm just a history buff. My father was in the Second World War in combat in Germany when he was very young. And I don't know, that I've always thought like I'd love to see that. I would just love to experience history that close up in that way. And so I fully plan on doing that. Haven't done it yet, but I fully plan on it.
What was your dad doing in forces?
So he was in the U.S. Army. He was a sergeant. He was the head of a 60 millimeter mortar squad.
Really?
So
Wow.
The smallest mortar there is. He was in there. He was actually he was training for Asia. He was 20 years old, and he was in California training for the invasion of Japan when the Battle of the Bulge happened. And so when the Battle of the Bulge happened, they grabbed all these guys that were going to be going to Asia and said, guess what? We're giving you cold weather gear. And by February of 1945, he found himself in France and then in Germany, and crossed the Rhine River. And when the war ended,
he was around Bastogne, anywhere around there?
He was in Hagen, Germany, which
was he?
So
wow.
Yes, he got over the Rhine when the war ended, and then they brought him back.
Rough there, didn't they?
Around there. So his entire combat service was like 50 days or something, and then the war ended, fortunately for him. And then he was still on the transport ship in Luzon Bay, I think it's called Luzon Bay, in the Philippines, when the war ended in Japan. So they were, and then I think in 1995 they declassified the U.S. plans for the invasion of Japan, and his was going to be the first Army division in Tokyo Bay, well after the Marines, I'm sure. Or I don't know that, but I assume. But I mean, he would have been involved. He would have been 21 years old and invading Japan himself. So I was very glad he was very glad, and I am very glad that the war ended when it did.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Amazing.
So how did you manage to start writing for Tom Clancy?
So I had written, my first book was called The Gray Man. That was actually my fourth finished manuscript, but it was the first one that got published. And it was published as a little mass market paperback. So just the little airplane paperback books. It wasn't a big hardcover. It wasn't like anything, earth shattering, but I was a published author, and it had sold to Hollywood, just this little book. And I had a second book came out in that series. And then my editor was also Tom Clancy's editor. I'd been turned down by 9 other editors when I was trying to get published.
That must be tough.
But yeah, well, it happened so fast. I was being turned down like twice a day. So it wasn't a protracted rejection, but it was. But then the 10th guy, the one who decided to publish me, was also Tom Clancy's editor, just coincidentally. And Tom Clancy was looking for a co-author, and they came to me and they said, would you be interested in trying out to be his author and co-author? So they had me go up to Baltimore to meet him, and then he agreed, and we wrote a book in 2011 called Locked On. And I was not allowed to tell anybody I was working with Tom Clancy until the book came out, because they didn't know what the finished product was going to be. So I was going up to talk to people in the CIA and the Pentagon, and I was up in DC, and and everybody, I would tell people that I was this guy with the little paperback book, and people were very nice, but I was very well aware that doors would have opened for me if I was able to just come up and say, hey, I'm writing a Jack Ryan book with Tom Clancy. Yeah. So I sort of had to do it all kind of undercover that first year. It was very frustrating. But then after that first book came out, it did really well. And, everybody was happy with it. And we did 2 more books, and then Tom passed away. And then his family asked me to continue writing the Jack Ryan novels. So I did 4 more. And so I did 7 in 6 years, but I was also writing my own series. Wow. And then I stepped away from Tom Clancy and then just continued writing my series. And I've written some books, some other books that were not in my series. And next year I'm going to write another book that's not part of the Gray Man series. So I'm writing a lot of stuff. It's not all Gray Man, but most of it is.
Yeah, yeah. And mine's gone blank. That's something I was going to ask you then. Just gone. The I know it is. With the Tom Clancy books, is it something that you can't, that then gave you the experience to then take that on to with the other books?
Yeah, it's so funny. I see, like, even if I told people that it didn't influence me, they could tell I was lying, because my first 3 Gray Man books came out before any Clancy books did, and I'm very proud of them. But they're sort of one type of story, very fast-paced, limited in scope, a little bit more like a John Wick movie or Die Hard movie. And then after I started writing with Clancy, my Gray Man books continued, but they got bigger, deeper, more geopolitical. They were told from more points of view. I did more location research for them, and just did more research in general. Yeah. And so my books went from, one style of story to a much bigger style of story, which was completely the Tom Clancy effect. They also got longer. No one ever asked me to write longer Gray Man novels, but the stories I wanted to tell just became bigger and more involved. And every year in the summertime when my book is due and I'm late, I'm just thinking, it's such a self-inflicted wound that I'm writing these 160,000 word novels when other authors are writing 90,000 word novels, and I'm writing basically double what some people are writing. And that's just a monster of my own making, but it's worked for me, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and if you enjoy doing it, you're still doing it.
So, that was the biggest thing that I enjoyed writing even before I got published. It took me forever to get published, but I enjoyed the process of thinking about stories, and it was very much I decided it was what I love to do, even if I never became successful at it, and so I kept doing it.
Yeah, but with the successes that you've had, your first 9 editors who turned you down must be kicking themselves, I would say.
I know of some of them now, and so I think they regret. I think they regret it. I mean, seriously, no hard feelings. I know some authors who, I know some authors who have chips on their shoulder about people that rejected them, and I'm like, they rejected me for reasons that made sense for what they were doing at the time.
It was meant to be.
Yeah, exactly, and everything worked out for the best, and I'm sure it worked out for them too. So, yeah, no hard feelings.
But it shows though, doesn't it? Resilience, persistence pays off. When we have an idea, people say to you, oh, no, you can't do that, or that will never work, and we don't want that. And you think, you know what? Actually, I do believe in myself, and going to keep knocking on the doors.
Yeah. And I look back at it, and I think not believing in myself is what took me 15 of those 20 years probably could have been avoided, because it was a lot of self-doubt. And those last few years where I felt like I was starting to, take it a little more seriously and look at it. And honestly, what happened, my father passed away, and there's something about the mortality of that. It's not to get too morose, but it's like I was 38 when my dad died, and I felt like I became a grown-up on that day, sadly. Yeah, and I finished my first book about 3 months after he passed away, and there was just something about like, hey, the clock is ticking on your life, and just buckle down and try that thing that you're passionate about and see what happens.
Well, that's a life-changing event, and those things do that, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, brilliant. We better ask our set questions.
Yes.
Get round to them.
So our first question, if you could take 3 people diving, or they could be book characters, who would you take underwater and why? And they can be past or present, or like we say, a book character.
Oh, that's good. So the first one would be my wife. My wife is deathly afraid of the water. She loves the beach. She hates the water. And she goes out of her way to make herself more scared because she likes to watch everything that has to do with sharks, every sensationalist, crazy thing that has to do with sharks. And she's kind of obsessed with it. So I would take her. It's not going to happen.
Not even snorkel?
I've had her snorkel in Hawaii, and she was a little stressed. But it was beautiful. It was in Kaanapali Bay. It was actually my most amazing snorkel experience. So you would think that would be a prelude. I think we're actually going to go to the BVI's on a crude yacht in this winter, and she's willing to do that. But I'm not going to push her in the water.
No.
Well, it's progress, isn't it? It's something.
It is progress. The second person would be Ava, who is my oldest stepdaughter, because she's the only one that I haven't gotten certified yet. She does want to do it. She hasn't taken the time to do it, but those discovery dives she's done with her boyfriend, and I've been down there with her. She's like made for the water. She just loves it, feels very free. So it's definitely going to happen. So I actually feel like I have a chance. I have more than a chance with Ava. And the third would be my dad, who passed away sadly. But my dad was taking a scuba. He was getting his open water when he was in his 70s.
Oh, wow.
And had to stop because of health reasons. And nothing that had to do with the scuba diving, just other stuff. But that was the thing I loved about my dad. Like he volunteered an archaeological site here near where I live, with Native American site, and he was well into his 70s, and he's out in July heat doing that. So he's a very interesting, brilliant guy, very curious, and that was something that he wanted to do, obviously because he was in his 70s, and he was taking the classes, which I think is pretty neat. And it was that was 3. My wife and Ava. My wife, no chance. Ava, big chance. My dad, unfortunately, no.
So your dad would like a wreck dive, wouldn't he? If he was into his history and things, he'd probably
he was into history.
wrecks.
I think he would like nothing more in the world, or just to sit there, because I do a lot of videos when I'm underwater, with a GoPro, and just to sit there with him and be able to show him some of the things I've seen. He would have loved that.
Oh, awesome. Okay. How about what sort of challenges you? What gets you out of your comfort zone? Don't have to be diving related. Can be anything really.
So I used to have really, really, really bad social anxiety, which I don't have anymore. But the way that I got was just getting myself being forced out of my comfort zone. It was never my inner fortitude or anything like that that helped me along the way. So I really feel like getting out of my comfort zone historically has been anything that involved talking to people I didn't know, all that sort of stuff, which now I've been on podcasts with millions of people watching, or I've been on TV shows, and I've been emceed banquets of 500 people, and gone to other countries and given speeches, and all these things they make me nervous like 5 seconds before it happens, and then I'm fine. It's like I'm not nervous at all that day, and there's always this like that moment beforehand. So I would say that I've sort of beaten that. So all right, let's say skydiving. I would be very much out of my comfort zone, jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. It does seem counterintuitive. I agree with you, Ian, on that one. But I think I want to do it before I die.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do it as I die. Let's say that.
Well, I hope we've put you more at ease. With doing the podcast. I can't imagine what was it like meeting Joe Rogan and being on his, because that's one of the biggest podcasts in the world.
Yeah, all my nerves about that had to do with don't say anything stupid, or, you know, don't say anything bad about somebody that, you know, just accidentally, or trying to be funny, or, you know, that sort of thing. You know, it's like, I knew that the podcast was going to be 3 hours plus, and I was just like, I've never talked to anybody for 3 hours, and now I have to do it in front of 10 million people.
Did they like warm you up, or is there like a warm up thing, or
no,
you just go straight into it?
No, he came in, we shook hands. He went to the bathroom. I walked to the back where the podcast was. I was putting the headphones on, and as I was putting them on, he's like, "Mark, it's so great to have you on here." And I was like, "Oh, I guess we're going." And that was the whole preamble. And then we talked for 3 hours. He had no notes or anything, and we just talked. And the whole time, you know, I have this tendency to sort of forget that I'm being recorded if I'm, you know, talking to people.
Yeah,
and it is good, but it's also it's potentially not good. And so I was worried that I was going to make some little aside about something or somebody that, you know, they wouldn't have appreciated. And it didn't happen. Everything worked out great. So
I don't know if he dives, does he?
He didn't say anything about diving. I don't know if he does. He cold plunges, which seems a lot worse than diving.
Yeah.
I'd much rather dive in the Bahamas than cold plunge in a tub.
Well, he's into his fitness and all that as well, isn't he? So yeah, it makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah, that was good. And then our final question: if you had a billboard that you could put out there to the whole world, so you could put your message out there, what would your message be? And you could put it as a statement, text, video, photo. What would you put on your billboard?
You know, the thing that when younger people ask me for advice, and I always say, this isn't advice I'm giving to you because I'm brilliant. This is advice I'm giving to you because of my mistakes. And you know, it's not that I'm some, you know, yogi on the top of a mountain, you know, but it's don't be afraid to be afraid. And if I could do my whole life over again and get rid of 25% of the anxiety that I had that sort of held me back, and, you know, I didn't commit myself to the thing I really love to do, which was writing, because I felt like, well, that's good things only happen to, you know, people who are different or lucky or whatever. And, you know, I need to live in a cubicle. I'll give you a diving example, hopefully not going too long. When I started diving, and I would go on these, go to these dive shops or go on these dive boats, a lot of the dive instructors, and this is probably you guys' experience, would be these people in their early 20s that were teaching me in my mid 40s or whatever I was how to dive. And they would be from Australia or the UK or the Netherlands or US, and they would be in St. Lucia or Puerto Vallarta or wherever, the Hawaii or wherever I was. And I remember just thinking, like, I didn't know that was a choice that you can make when you're a young person, to do something fun and fascinating with your life. And how cool would that be to be, you know, I've been on crewed yachts before, you know, fortunate enough, you know, catamarans, or not like, we're not talking about, you know, Bill Gates yacht, but these are like young people that work on there, and you go like, what an amazing existence. And my imagination when I was young is that you went to high school, and then college was 13th grade and 14th grade and 15th grade, and then you went and you worked in a cubicle, and I had no, you know, I think I was like a little too anxious to like go out there and experience the world like I deserve to be there. And so, like, you know, I always tell people, don't be afraid to be afraid, because you have to get past that. You have to get out of your comfort zone for anything good to happen to you. And that's the thing that I really stress to people. And again, it's me going like, you know, don't do what I did. Do exactly the opposite of what I did, and I think it'll work out for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good advice. Yeah, really good. Yeah, so if people want to find out more about you, do you have a website where they can go?
I do. I'm all over social media, but my website is my name, Mark Greaney, GREANEY books.com. And you can see everything that's going on with me, all my books, and my travels and tour dates and things like that.
Yeah, that's great. Excellent. So have you been to the UK before?
Oh my gosh, many times. Yeah,
Great.
First time I was in Northern Ireland just 6 months or so ago. but that was my first time there. But the first time my stepkids left the US, we went to London, so they got to experience it. Excellent. They loved it.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to explore in the UK as well. So you have to bring your dive kit another time.
I know. I would love to dive there. I absolutely would love it. Yeah.
Yeah. We always say we're an island, and we really sort of push, the amazing variety that we have in diving around our coastlines. It's such a full of variety. I know the weather isn't always on our side, but when it is, it's good.
It's never on our side.
Get used to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, that's been really entertaining podcast, and I'm sure people will be really interested, and hopefully look up some books and get reading.
Yeah, well, it's great to talk to you guys. Enjoyed it.
No, well, thank you as well for being on the Big Scuba podcast. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
Great.
Well, thank you, Mark, for joining us on the Big Scuba. That was brilliant. Woo, little round of applause.
Yeah, very good. I think he must be one of our biggest published authors.
Hey, he's been on Joe Rogan and then came here.
We need to tag Joe Rogan in, don't we?
Step up from the Joe Rogan podcast to ours, eh? Yeah. So what about that? Brilliant. And great guest. Hope if you're listening, we hope you enjoyed that conversation and a bit of everything. How do you write a book like that? All those books like that?
I don't know.
That's got to be tough.
But it's kind of quite interesting how he does his research as well. Like interviewing people, military, experiencing military operations, going to different countries.
I was thinking, how you do it, and then suddenly think, have I not? This feels familiar, especially when you've done so many books.
Yeah, that's what I'd think. You'd be copying.
Have I not done this? This seems familiar, or am I am I having deja vu here, or?
But then you could say that about James Bond, maybe. There's always a villain.
Well, there's quite a few books, and I suppose
there's always a lady or a few girls.
And Ian Fleming was quite a character, and one of his friends was Christopher Lee as well, who was also a bit of a character. And I suppose with what they did wartime gave them quite a bit of inspiration, and then what came later, as you said, some of the books are not always as good. I don't. I wouldn't even know where to start to write a book. So
and I'd never heard of somebody co-authoring, so writing under somebody else's name.
So this happens quite a lot. So ghost writers. So in the like the arts and that. So it's not just writing; it's painting, music, writing music, anything like that. So for some people might get really, really popular, and then on a business point of view, they'll build up this fan base of people go, right, I need to know the next book, and you can only write books so fast, can't you? And to keep the heat going in a story or in a line of books and what have you, to keep things ticking over in writing, what they do get is they'll get other writers in, other authors in who've got experience of this, blah blah blah, and then say, we'll write under this, and we'll use that as an example, but not solely Tom Clancy, and there'll be ghost writers below that. But that happens with other titles as well, not and I'm just using Tom Clancy as an example. But other, this happens in arts as well, so if somebody wants to do a painting and somebody will go and do it under some kind of license, into that, it's business.
It's interesting. But let's go and find one of you.
Apparently, it was word on the street. Don't know. This could be totally rubbish. That some of the top bands, when they're getting older, they have bands playing music underneath the stage, because some of the bands, and let's say, for example, people like the Who, or what's names, some of these old bands who are getting older, up in their age, they can't keep up. The 70s, 80s. You imagine trying to jump about, trying to play music and stuff like that. It was fine in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
But now they're in the 70s and 80s, and they're still going. Well, they can't do it all, so they need a bit of help. So apparently, they'll have unknown players playing the music for them underneath the stage. And that goes on quite a lot. So it's business, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that is what it is. But there we go. So we ought to say thank you very much for Mark coming on and giving us some of his time. Sounds like some great places he's dived.
Yeah, and continuing his diving journey as well. So he's 80 dives in, so he's got a lot ahead of him, and hopefully more research for his books.
I can just imagine some of the places I've been. I know when I went to America, and I'm sure people who are listening to this, who've had holidays in America and what have you, and you go to, for us Brits, this is alien, but for people who live in America, and a lot of our listeners do, it's just the norm. But for us Brits who come and go on holiday there and tour, when you walk into the general stores, and for me in Maine, downstairs, I walked into one place and there was a church. Next door to it was the general stores. Downstairs, it was all weddings and things like that. It was all to do with weddings and also electrical stuff. And then upstairs was arts, things like that. So if you was into arts and painting and photography, that was all upstairs. But downstairs, sweets, magazines, rifles, big knives, all sorts of things, machine guns, some of the biggest rifles I've ever seen, pistols, you name it. And I said to this, I was like just looking around, and archery stuff next to the sweets and magazines and stuff. And I was like, what's a rocket launcher? I'm like $3,500 or something like that at the time. I'm like, it's a real rocket launcher. And the guy saw me look and he said, you okay? I said, do you have the ammo for that? Being a little bit sarcastic and a bit cheeky. He went, yeah, we've got that around the back. If you're interested. Wow. And at the time, there was these two guys trying out these machine guns, these assault rifles. And that's like, as a Brit, you totally not used to that sort of thing. It makes you think, whoa,
Yeah, different world, bigger
world. It's a different world. And, America's such a big country compared to our little dinky little country. But it's brilliant. We're all different. We're all different.
Yeah. Diverse range of differences.
Yeah, but a great country. I love going to America. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we better say thank you to our podcast sponsors, Narked at 90, for sponsoring our podcasts. Yeah. And you can find them at www.narkedat90. They've got everything from the recreational to the very technical diver. And there to solve any problems or challenges you have to do with your diving equipment or engineering problems. They are the men to ask.
And we've literally spent the weekend around them, and we've been just come away from the Go Diving show, which is a fantastic fantastic show. If you we'll probably talk about this
at the beginning,
at the beginning, but just want to hark on the point a little bit that they were very busy because people know them for their service and their products that they sell. So there we go.
Yeah, and again, there's a back catalogue of previous episodes, over 200. So
6 years worth.
6 years. So that's a podcast nearly every 2 weeks, and in the early days it was every week. But yeah, you have a look. We've spoken
that was
to
in lockdown when, well, I was working kind of still, but
time was a little bit,
and you had
less precious.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but yeah, have a look through our back catalogue. You can listen to them on all your podcast platforms or via our website. Tell your diving friends or anybody, because all the episodes, they've got something for the diver and the non-diver.
Yeah.
There's always something interesting that comes out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think until then, that was
the Big Scuba Podcast.